Have you ever imagined what it means to be completely forgotten by the world? Trapped not just behind concrete walls, but inside a mind that slowly disintegrates, day after day with no one to notice? What you're about to discover now may surprise you, but before we understand what happens within these walls, I need to ask you, could you bear the idea of living knowing that every breath, every step, every second of your life is being controlled by hands that know no compassion? Wake up with me just for a moment in a dark cell, where the smell of sweat, fear, and blood mingle. It's dawn. The silence isn't peace, it's anticipation. A distant sound, the footsteps of guards, but not just any footsteps. Footsteps that announce something terrible is about to happen. You feel your heart race, your skin crawl, and even without understanding, you know that death or pain is near. This is where hell begins. Imagine what happens when time ceases to exist. When waiting becomes punishment. Tadmor, Palmyra, ADX, Florence, Black Dolphin. Names that carry stories no one should know but you will hear. Stories of human beings reduced to shadows, each with a past, dreams, memories. Each story interrupted by the calculated cruelty of those who wield absolute power. And as you listen, you can't help but wonder, what if it were me? The sound of chains dragging across the floor, the crack of a whip shattering hope, the heavy breathing of a cellmate who may never see the light of day again. This isn't fiction. It's reality. And within it, the human mind transforms. Some go mad, others resign themselves to it, some learn to wait for the blow that never comes, but all feel the same pain. The pain of powerlessness, the pain of existing without control. Have you ever wondered what goes through the mind of someone who knows their life could end without warning, that every gesture, every word could be punished with extreme violence? Imagine the confusion, the paranoia, the hopelessness. Imagine being surrounded by hundreds of others, all trapped, all afraid but not knowing exactly why. What would you do? Would you remain silent, try to hide, or give in to your most primal instinct for survival? As you consider this, know that some of these places weren't created solely to punish. Some were designed to break the spirit, to test the limits of what is human, to observe fear and study it as if it were an experiment. Every cell, every corridor, every routine of suffering is a silent strategy. And you, on the other side of the screen, feel this tension. You feel the invisible weight of oppression even without being there. What keeps these prisons alive is not just violence, but the realization of the inevitable. Knowing that there is no way out or that freedom is just a distant memory. What you're about to see will bring you face to face with the darkest aspects of human behavior. But it will also make you look within and ask yourself, how many of us in our own lives have carried small, invisible prisons where guilt, fear, and powerlessness keep us captive? Now feel the air change. A chill that's not just physical but psychological. Each story will reveal isn't just about prisons, but about how human beings react when faced with extreme pain. When hope is stripped away, when power is absolute, when death isn't just a possibility, but a silent, constant certainty watching your every move. And it is here, in this moment, that we must take the first step into these worlds the world would rather forget. Where pain, injustice, and fear coexist so intensely that every second becomes an eternity. Where you don't just observe, but feel. Where you realize that true terror lies not in the walls, but in what they reveal about the human mind, and, perhaps, about yourself. What you're about to discover isn't comfortable, and it shouldn't be. But there's something fascinating about it, something that holds your attention, that whispers forbidden secrets in your ear. And then, without realizing it, you're already inside. Inside the cells, inside the tension, inside the horror that begins now, and that will reveal itself in layers, little by little as we move forward. And as you feel that heavy breathing in the silence of the cells, you realize the story doesn't end here. That there are still locked doors, hidden corridors, secrets waiting to be revealed. Do you want to know what happens in the places where no one dares look? Where every shadow holds a memory, every sigh carries a warning, and every step could be your last. So stay with me. Subscribing here isn't just a click. It's a silent pact. It's allowing these stories to keep coming to you, allowing the darkness to keep revealing itself in layers, without hiding anything but without revealing everything at once. It's ensuring that every prison, every broken mind, every seemingly impossible mystery finds a space to be told. By subscribing, you're not just helping the channel. You're choosing to stay within the tension, doubt, and suspense. You're saying, I want to see it through to the end. I want to feel the story, understand the human mind, explore the forbidden. It's a simple gesture, but it keeps alive that invisible thread between the teller and the observer. Between truth and secret. Between you and each story yet to be revealed. And it's not about numbers. It's not about popularity. It's about you who understands that these narratives cannot be lost. That curiosity needs to be satisfied, but in a safe, intense, almost intimate way. Because what comes next will surpass all expectations. And I want you to be here with me, seeing every detail, feeling every silence, every pain, every revelation that is yet to come. So, as you feel the weight of what has already been told, imagine what still waits in the shadows. Imagine the corridors no one walks, the cells where time rots, and the secrets whispered only to those who dare to listen. Registration is what ensures you won't miss any of these moments. That you will continue into this darkness with us, step by step, breath by breath. And as your eyes remain fixed on the screen, know this: the next chapter is just around the corner. But to get there we must walk together. Not as spectators, but as silent accomplices in this story that defies limits, tests morality, confronts mortality, and makes you ask yourself, what if it were me? Stay. Subscribe. Allow the thread of the narrative to continue, laden with mystery, pain, and discovery. Because even now, as you listen, feel, and watch, what comes next will change the way you look at darkness. And this darkness is not over yet. Tadmor. The gray walls breathed hatred. Each brick carried stories no one dared tell, whispers of endless screams. The floor, cold and cracked, seemed to absorb every step of those who approached, returning echoes of fear, echoes that infiltrated the mind before the eyes could even see. Can you feel the weight of this? It's not just a prison. It's a space where time breaks, fragments, and each second feels like an eternity. Where death is not the end, but a specter that watches and shapes the sanity of those who dare to exist there. Within these walls, every decision felt like a calculated movement between life and something you couldn't name. The transformation isn't visible, but you feel it. Your mindset shifts without warning, subtly, almost imperceptibly. First comes unease, then paranoia, until doubt becomes routine. What would you do if every choice carried a weight that could decide the outcome of everything? What if the hidden truth were merely a mask, and what you envision as justice is nothing more than a cruel act to maintain order between the living and those who have died in silence? Those who passed through the gates of Tadmor arrived carrying stories, but they left carrying shadows. And these shadows weren't just memories. They were marks etched on the mind, invisible scars that shaped dreams and nightmares, blurring the line between reality and interpretation. Have you ever felt this? The sensation that you're observing something that shouldn't exist, that every detail hides a revelation that could alter everything you believe about humanity, crime, and justice? It's the psychological voyeurism that captivates us, makes us silent accomplices, even without touching, even without seeing. And then there are the corridors. Long, narrow, windowless. Each door a sentence, each cell a mind about to explode in silence. The condemned man walks. He feels the chill down his spine, the shiver that won't go away. Each step echoes like a countdown, and you feel the rhythm of your own anxiety, almost synchronized with his. This is where the mental transformation reveals itself. The seconds before execution are not just waiting. They are an abyss where past, present, and future collide. Where every painful memory mixes with pure fear, guilt, and regret. He thinks about what he did. Or does he think about what he didn't do? The questions arise, fleeting, confusing. What is real? What has been manipulated, shaped by those who control hell? False clues mingle with the truth. A distant laugh or a muffled scream could be real, or just echoes of the mind trying to protect itself. The line between what he remembers and what he imagines blurs. And you feel it too. Because by watching you become part of the dilemma. Part of the spectacle no one asked to see, but which awakens fascination. And as the tension builds, you realize the pain isn't just physical. It's psychological, emotional. With each moment that approaches death, every cell reacts, every memory mingles with regret, guilt, and a morbid curiosity. What if it were me? It's an impact you feel, not just observe. An almost intimate connection, unbreakable, unexplainable. It's the hidden truth of safe fear, the fascinating attraction of the forbidden, what keeps us coming back, even knowing that each answer raises new questions. And there's something behind the scenes that few see. Small details, insignificant at first glance. A glance between guards, a half-open door, a displaced object. Every fragment carries revelations. Every shadow hides secrets that will never be fully revealed, but which you sense even without seeing. The condemned man's mind becomes a labyrinth, and you walk through it with him, feeling the impact of every memory, every decision, every choice that brought him to that moment. And now, as he takes a deep breath, sensing the inevitable, you realize this isn't just about an execution. It's about human limits, about justice that seems distant, about mortality that silently watches us, about the truths no one dares tell, but that reveal themselves in fragments, pieces of a narrative that captivates us, transforms us, leaves us restless and curious. Every moment is a revelation, every detail an echo of pain. And yet the abyss never ceases. Watch as you watch. And the story continues, hidden in the shadows, poised to reveal something even deeper, more disturbing, more human. Tadmor breathed the anguish of those who would never see the light of day again. And yet there was an almost hypnotic stillness, a silence that seemed to seduce the mind before tearing it apart. Do you feel it? The way the heavy air moves through the corridors, laden with memories that refuse to fade, with screams that insist on lingering even when no one hears. Each cell was a microcosm of pain, a laboratory of mental transformation. Each condemned man carried not only his past, he carried the expectation of a stolen future, a fate decided by others, but felt with all the intensity of someone standing on the edge of an invisible precipice. Imagine being there, watching every shadow writhe, every body buckle under the weight of punishment. The lashes weren't just physical, they were a language of violence, a way of communicating that nothing, not even the mind, was safe. Electric shocks streaked the air, burns drew maps of pain on the skin. But the real torture was in the mind, in the invisible layers of fear that eroded every shred of humanity, leaving behind only instinct and despair. And you realize even from afar that this psychological impact doesn't dissolve. It seeps in. It transforms. The doors opened and closed without warning. Sometimes it was a step toward death. Other times, a cruel test of sanity. Every movement, every forced decision shaped a mindset you can't explain, a cadence that defies logic. And yet, even surrounded by brutality, there were moments of lucidity, fragments of consciousness that reminded the condemned of who they were before becoming part of the system. And then the first question arises, to what extent were these memories his own or merely echoes implanted by the environment itself, by the structure that transformed fear into control, suffering into macabre learning? The massacre of June 27, 1980, didn't begin with screams or explosions. It began with silence, with the tension that precedes chaos. Between 500 and 1,000 lives were taken in a dawn that no one would forget, no one who would survive to tell the tale. And the horror lay not only in the quantity, but in the routine of the violence that preceded and followed that day. The torture was choreographed. Lashes set the rhythm, electric shocks set the pace, burns transformed bodies into testimonies of pain. And yet, what truly made it hell was hidden. Do you feel the strange empathy for the condemned man? Do you feel the chill that comes from identifying with his vulnerability, with the silent injustice? Every step he took in the corridors of Tadmor was a step you felt as if it were your own. Every breath, every stare into the void, every painful memory seemed projected directly into your mind. And as you watch, you ask yourself, what if it were me? What would I do if every choice could determine not only my life but my sanity? The line between psychological voyeurism and compassion blurs, and you are sucked into the abyss, invited to feel the safe fear that keeps us connected, hypnotized, attentive. And there's more. Every story, every execution, every torture has its own backstory, its own details that few notice. Small gestures that indicate power, control, and manipulation. A glance between guards that reveals silent complicity. A door that opens to reveal nothing but allows the mind to invent horrors. Every fragment of the environment serves to distort the condemned's perception, to blend reality and interpretation in such a way that you begin to doubt what is true, what is fabricated, what is merely a consequence of the mind's struggle to survive. The spiral of horror deepened, and each layer revealed more of the massacre's psychological impact. Every memory, every pain, every decision shaped a mind transformed by fear, guilt, and regret. He wasn't just a victim of physical violence. He was a prisoner of a hidden truth, a mental construct that made him feel every act as inevitable, irreversible, personal. And you feel it too. You feel the tension, the doubt, the discomfort of realizing you're observing something that transcends rational understanding, something that touches human limits, the fragility of sanity, the need to understand the incomprehensible. And as the day draws near, as footsteps echo through the stone and metal corridors, you realize that each second holds a revelation, but never the full revelation. That the mind of the condemned is a labyrinth of regret, fear, and fragmented memories, and that even when everything seems exposed, there are still hidden layers, shifting shadows, and stories that cannot be fully told. The brutality is not just physical. It is psychological, emotional, existential. And the spiral of horror continues, enveloping all who dare to look, all who feel, all who seek to understand what seems impossible to comprehend. The moment he takes a deep breath, you feel the tension rippling through the hallway. The silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the active presence of fear, the impact of past decisions, the weight of approaching mortality. And while the world outside remains indifferent, inside Tadmor, every second is an eternity, every choice an echo of transformation. And you realize with discomfort and fascination that you haven't seen it all yet. That the mind, the environment, and the story hold more revelations, more hidden truths, more layers of horror ready to emerge, continuing the spiral that already envelopes you, that already transforms you. The corridor reeked of a smell no one should breathe, but everyone did. Dried blood, sweat mixed with hopelessness, and something more subtle, almost imperceptible. The fear that ingrains the mind before manifesting itself in the body. Each new prisoner was a promise of suffering, and at the same time, a blank canvas for the horror unfolding there. Some ran, others staggered, all under the calculating gaze of the guards who seemed to move to their own rhythm, a punishing rhythm that transformed each step into a silent threat. Some didn't survive the first day, and the bodies disappeared as if the very ground of Tadmor swallowed them, leaving only echoes and unanswerable questions. The psychological impact began even before the first blow. Can you feel it? The mind tensed, waiting for the unexpected, searching for any sign of normalcy that didn't exist. It's a dance of survival where every decision, every choice however small, could be the difference between life and an invisible death. And those who survived bore unseen marks, internal scars that shaped a mindset transformed by constant fear, a perception of the world reduced to the present moment, with no secure past, no guaranteed future. Disease spread as effectively as terror. The lack of medical care, the deliberate neglect, made each illness more lethal than any physical blow. And the isolation wasn't just geographic, it was psychological, a tool that eroded identity, erased references, and replaced memories with reminders of pain and helplessness. Each prisoner began to doubt themselves, to question whether their memories were true or fabricated by an environment designed to confuse and subjugate. And as you watch, there's an unsettling sensation that the line between what's real and what's manipulated dissolves, leaving only the mind suspended in the terror of unknown possibilities. And yet, there were moments when the condemned encountered fragments of humanity. A look, a gesture, a whispered word between screams and lashes. But these rare interactions were double-edged weapons. They reminded them that life still existed, but also that it was cruelly limited, a contrast that deepened the psychological impact, fueled regrets, silent guilt, memories that could not be forgotten. You feel it, don't you? A mixture of empathy and horror, a morbid curiosity about what each mind does to survive when everything around it conspires against it. The behind-the-scenes nature of this hell was as cruel as it was visible. Guards exchanged glances and smiles as they decided who would live, who would die, who would merely survive to face more pain the next day. Each routine, each violent ritual, each arbitrary decision left deep scars not only on the body but also on the psyche, transforming men and women into shadows of their former selves, capable of feeling fear out of instinct, regret out of survival, and guilt for not being able to save others. And then, those who survived the first day discovered that the worst was yet to come. Every moment became a silent test of mental endurance. Every choice, even the most insignificant, carried existential weight. The spiral of violence wasn't linear. It twisted, expanded, engulfed every mind, every body, every fragment of identity. In a process you watched and felt as if you were right there beside them, breathing the same air, feeling the same cold, the same tightness in your chest. Do you notice how the condemned man's mind transforms? Every second is an eternity, every step a decision about how to react to horrors that defy logic and morality. And as he walks the corridors, the anticipation of violence mingles with the memory of previous blows, creating a cadence that simultaneously hypnotizes and terrifies. There are false leads that confuse, moments of apparent relief that only intensify the tension, unanswered questions that remain suspended in the air, suggesting that every action, every reaction, could be as much about survival as it is about damnation. And you begin to realize that Tadmor is not just a physical place. It is a mental state, an architecture of suffering, a reality built to explore human, psychological, and emotional limits. Each prisoner is simultaneously victim and witness to a hidden truth, a silent experiment in fear, control, and transformation. And even if you step away from the story, even if you take a deep breath trying to distance yourself, the feeling persists. That there is something more to discover, that the condemned man's mind still holds secrets, that the spiral of horror is still spinning, waiting for the next moment to reveal more of its incomplete truth. As the corridors echo with footsteps and whispers, you feel the tension growing. Every shadow seems self-aware, every silence seems to scream secrets that cannot be fully understood. And yet, there is a strange pull, a need to keep looking, to try to understand, to penetrate the veil of pain, guilt, and regret that Tadmor maintains as his own guardian. The violence escalated, but the true transformation lay in the mind, in perception, in the psychological impact that each moment had on those inside and, in a way, on those watching from the outside. And while all this happens, the condemned man's mind prepares, unconsciously or not, for the next level of the spiral. You realize, with a mixture of fascination and fear, that there are still hidden layers, stories intertwined with reality and interpretation, truths that only emerge when least expected, revelations that defy logic and instigate the deepest curiosity. The first day is only the beginning, and what seemed like the height of horror is merely an open door to something deeper, more invisible, more psychological, ready to be felt, not just understood. And while you still feel the weight of those corridors, the echo of footsteps that may never have ended, I want you to do something with me now. It's not just watching. It's participating. Look inside your own mind. Take a deep breath and let that word emerge, that phrase that arises when injustice is so deep it hurts inside you. It could be injustice, fear, hidden truth, or anything your instinct whispers. Write in the comments. Let your reaction be recorded, let your emotions find space. Don't underestimate this. Each comment is a connection, a silent gesture that shows that you felt, that you realized, that you're not alone staring into this abyss. Here, no one judges, no one ignores. Each word is a confirmation that this channel isn't just about dark stories, but about sharing them, feeling them, understanding them together. And perhaps in writing you'll discover something about yourself. The memory of an injustice you've never been able to comprehend, the feeling of powerlessness in the face of something greater, the restlessness that keeps you awake at night. This is the safe space we're creating, layer by layer, word by word. Each comment isn't just a gesture. It's a testimony, a fragment of consciousness that keeps alive the spiral of stories we've yet to explore. So breathe, look within, and write. Just one word. Just one sentence. An echo of what you felt as you imagined those corridors, those minds, that silent transformation of fear into survival, of pain into remembrance. And as you type, know that your every gesture prepares the ground for the next moment. Because the story continues always and you are part of it, not as a spectator but as a confidant, as someone who carries with them the same tension, the same empathy, the same horror that inhabits Tadmor. Do you feel it? Is there, in that space, that connection happens? And what you write now may be the same thing that, later, helps us reveal the next layer, the next hidden truth. Don't hold back. What echoes in your mind, in your memory, deserves to be shared. And as your words emerge, the silence of the cells continues to whisper to us that there is much more to discover, feel, and reflect upon. Fear isn't just a sensation there. It seeps into the bones, transforming every thought into shadow. Each survivor carries fragments of insanity, decisions ripped from their own consciousness, memories that belong to no one but them. Some try to rationalize, others simply remain silent, but everyone knows that the next moment could be their last. Can you feel it? It's almost palpable even through the screen, the pressure that bends body and soul. And as I speak, imagine yourself there, among those silent corridors, where every door that opens is a scream that is never heard. The behind-the-scenes events are not told in history books. The hidden truth, the impact that drags from one cell to the next, leaves marks that not even time can erase. One gaze meets another, and you realize, even without words, that there is a silent pact between those who survived. No one tells everything, no one reveals completely. Stay with me until the end. This isn't just a cliché. Because what's to come, what you'll discover about the human mind facing the abyss, can't be understood in fragments. Every detail I'm about to reveal carries the depth of life-changing decisions, transformations no one ever imagined could happen within. If you remain attentive, allow yourself to feel every shadow, every silence, every interrupted breath, something will reveal itself that justifies every second of your attention. Think about the choices, the mindset that is shaped in captivity, how much the human mind can bend to the point of losing itself. And at the same time, think about the strength that still pulses, even in broken bodies, even in souls that wish only to disappear. Each revelation that follows, each fragment of truth, is not just information. It is experience, it is intimate contact with something most would rather never know. And as you imagine all this, know that you are not alone in this corridor of silence and secrets. Every shadow that passes before you, every story interrupted before its end, is an opportunity to look within and confront yourself. Some would call this psychological voyeurism. I call it a necessary experience. And you who are here with me understand this without needing words. What you'll discover won't be comfortable. It may even leave you wondering what's real, what's being interpreted, and what actually happened. It's this blurred line that makes the impact genuine, that makes every second worthwhile. Every step I take, every detail I reveal, is calculated so you feel it, not just see it. So you're present, active, immersed. And as human collapse continues to unfold before us, as the shattered mind continues to be used for cruelty, a question arises almost unintentionally. What would you do if you were there? Would you endure? Would you survive the pressure, the waiting, the need to make impossible decisions? Think about it. Feel it. Because every shadow I reveal, every fragment of insanity, is also a mirror of what can exist within any of us when pain and fear are pushed to their limits. Stay with me until the end, because what lies ahead is not just another story. It is the revelation of how a human being can lose themselves, yet become part of something greater, something few dare to face. And as you breathe, trying to comprehend, know that every piece of this narrative, every hidden detail, is being constructed so that you feel the weight, the impact, and, above all, the truth that hides within the silent walls of Tadmor. Do you notice how every shadow moves? Every decision, every sigh, every regret no one can hear is here. And yet, something deeper waits to be revealed. The human mind is not just a witness, it is a battlefield. And you, silent confidant, are about to see what it means to truly survive, never being safe even when the end seems inevitable. The silence of ADX Florence isn't just the absence of sound. It's presence. It's a pressing density that forces the mind to revisit every memory, every decision, every regret. There the hours don't pass. They stretch, infiltrate thoughts, transforming each memory into a specter that tirelessly pursues. Have you ever imagined being alone, surrounded by concrete and steel, counting the seconds as if they were stones weighing down your soul? This cold calculation is no accident. Every wall, every door, every glimmer of light is designed to erode perception, to dissolve the certainty that there's still tomorrow. And the condemned realize, slowly. First, there are the sounds, the distant echo of footsteps that never come their way, the metallic clang of chains moving for no apparent reason, as if the building breathed on its own. Then it's the mind, which begins to project images that never existed, whispering secrets that may be real, may not. Each moment becomes a test, a silent decision. Give in to madness or learn to live with it, find some form of inner resistance. It's impossible not to feel empathy even from a distance. The condemned man's mind, seconds before execution, is a minefield of regret, guilt, and a desire for liberation, not from prison but from his own inner torment. Every breath weighs a ton, every heartbeat seems to echo in the empty corridors of the cell. And you, the silent observer, begin to realize that the experience of watching this, of understanding this, creates a mirror. A subtle reflection. What if it were me? How would I react to my own slow destruction, the absolute isolation, the cold calculation of someone who sees me only as an object of study? There are false clues in what you perceive, shadows that suggest stories that may never have happened. Sometimes the condemned man speaks to himself, and you doubt whether you hear him or imagine you hear him. The line between reality and interpretation blurs, leaving only the feeling that something terrible lurks beneath every detail. Each fragment of hidden truth is delivered in layers, inviting you to slowly piece together the puzzle of the human mind subjected to extremes. And then a silent question arises, almost whispered among the echoes of the concrete. Is this punishment or a psychological experiment? Can the human mind endure torture in such a way as to reveal secrets, hidden forces, truths about itself that would never be accessed otherwise? Here, the impact is not just physical but mental, emotional. Every decision, every attempt to remain whole, every moment of surrender to pain is observed, recorded, analyzed, in absolute silence but with surgical precision. Do you feel it? The weight of concrete is nothing compared to the weight of yourself reflected back, naked and vulnerable, in the walls that surround you. And as this mind fragments and reorganizes, as the system perverts not only freedom but the very perception of existence, you realize how much remains to be understood. Each revelation conceals another, each sigh seems to carry a hidden truth that will only reveal itself slowly, in calculated fragments. And amidst this abyss, an uncomfortable realization emerges. The human mind, even broken, remains active. It still makes decisions, still perceives impacts, still reacts. No matter how absolute the isolation, how cold the concrete, consciousness persists. To persist is to survive, but survival here tastes like torture, like a lesson few would dare experience. What you're about to see next isn't just a tale of cells and concrete facts. It's a descent into the core of the human psyche, where every impulse, every memory, and every regret becomes part of a silent experiment. And even now, as you feel the tension tighten in your chest, you know that the worst, and the most revealing, is yet to come. Because the perverse system isn't just physical. It's mental. It's emotional. It's invisible. And every detail I'm about to reveal will show the extent to which the mind can be manipulated, corroded, and still function. The silence that descends after each scream isn't just an absence of sound. It's an oppressive presence, a constant reminder that the mind observes itself, squeezed between concrete and time. Footsteps in the corridor echo like hammer blows, each echo reflecting not only on the walls but also on the very perception of the condemned, altering their mindset, challenging their most basic decisions. Can you imagine what it's like to measure every breath, every glance, as if each instant were a silent experiment? It's not just confinement. It's a testing ground where every reaction, every emotion, every memory of a previous life is recorded, examined, manipulated. There are moments when the condemned man looks up at the sky through the small window, a patch of blue that seems to laugh at his impotence. Light enters but doesn't warm. Air circulates but doesn't release. And that's when the transformation begins, imperceptible, slow, almost invisible, penetrating the deepest recesses of the mind. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll see about these fragments of human consciousness will challenge your beliefs about limits, pain, and survival. Each calculated routine, each short visit, each small physical exercise isn't mere control. It's a silent reconstruction of perception, a way of shaping the mind without leaving any visible traces. The impact isn't measured in days or weeks, but in microseconds of tension and decision. The mind becomes its own prison, and fear, though safe to the outside observer, becomes visceral. You feel the weight of guilt, the regret that seeps into memories, the psychological voyeurism that establishes itself not only as horror, but as a need to understand human nature at its most extreme. The questions arise on their own. How many thoughts can be corrupted before they become irreversible? How many hidden truths are revealed only when the mind is on the brink of destruction? Even in the quietest moments, there are false clues. A metallic creaking sound that suggests a presence where there is none, shadows that stretch without explanation, imagined voices that make one doubt one's own judgment. Everything is calculated, every detail part of a narrative that blends reality and interpretation, leaving the condemned man, and you with him, questioning what is truth and what is projection. Each fragment of perception is a piece of background that, if examined, reveals revelations about human limits that no one wants to confront directly. And yet, there is something worse than physical isolation. It is the mental loneliness that erodes defenses, that forces introspection, that transforms every memory of life outside the walls into a slow stab. The condemned find themselves confronted not only with justice or punishment, but with mortality in its raw form, questioning whether their own decisions, their past, their choices, have inevitably led them to this moment. Fear is no longer external. It arises from within, a force that defies logic and rationality, creating a state of constant alert, where every decision, every thought, every impulse is examined under a cold, merciless light. Do you feel what it's like to be trapped within yourself, forced to relive mistakes, reconsider intentions, measure every reaction as if every cell in your mind were being recorded for some hidden purpose? It's an experience of psychological voyeurism, where you become an unwitting accomplice, witness to the fissures of a consciousness slowly fragmenting. And with each moment, the tension grows, the empathy intensifies, and the curiosity becomes almost painful. What else can this mind reveal when everything around seems but an echo of calculated torture? There are subtle revelations hidden in the details. A fixed gaze on the wall, a hesitation in a gesture, a memory that insists on returning as if wanting to be remembered. Everything is an invitation to examine internal transformation, to understand the perversity of the system, and to question not only what is human, but how far humanity can endure before bending, breaking, or rebuilding itself in silence. And amidst this growing tension, a certainty takes hold. The apparent routine, the controlled exercises, the brief visits, the minimal window, none of this is mere chance. It's part of a subtle mechanism that, layer by layer, reveals a hidden truth about control, psychological impact, and the manipulation of consciousness. Every element has a purpose, every detail an effect, and every moment of silence conceals an abyss waiting to be contemplated. And you realize that the worst is yet to come. That every sigh, every thought of the condemned, every shadow cast on the concrete, prepares the ground for something deeper, more revealing, more painful. The mind, even isolated, continues to work, to suffer, to transform, and you, a silent confidant, feel the tension grow, the empathy intensify, and the mystery deepen, making it clear that the horror is not just external. It originates from within. And what comes next will reveal how intricate, cruel, and fascinating this mental perversity truly is. The cold here isn't just physical. It penetrates the bones but also the mind. Every step through the black dolphin corridors reverberates as a reminder of what was lost, what was stolen, what can never be recovered. Can you feel the weight? The silence isn't calm, its presence, an invisible gaze that scrutinizes every gesture, every breath, as if to say, you are at the mercy of something greater than yourself. Every man, every mind that breathes there, carries with them stories of death, of choices that crossed lines that shouldn't have been crossed, decisions that became eternal in their gravity. But the most terrible truth isn't the past they carry. It's what happens when punishment becomes continuous, when the abyss isn't just physical but psychological, social, and intimate. The routine is rigorous, almost ritualistic, but there is no redemption. Exercise, confinement, invisible barriers that bend over each individual with mathematical precision. The mind slowly fragments, one piece at a time, without realizing the exact moment when everything changes. Stay with me until the end, because what is about to emerge from this abyss is not just pain. It is a disturbing understanding of the collective impact of a life marked by crimes, punishments, and manipulations that transcend all limits. It is here that patterns, strategies, and decisions that shape human behavior under extreme pressure are revealed, revelations that no one outside this world can imagine or fully comprehend. And then the domino effect sets in. One condemned observes another, and the reflection of one's own guilt becomes intolerable. It's psychological voyeurism at its peak. You see, feel, almost participate, but you can't intervene. The spectator's safe fear transforms into an almost physical understanding of the internal destruction that every second there provokes. Every mechanical gesture, every blank look, every word whispered in the hallway or memorized in silence, all become evidence that the system doesn't just punish. It molds, corrupts, transforms. And what you see from the outside is only superficial. The hidden truth lurks in small crevices of the mind, in decisions that would never be made under normal circumstances, but which here become inevitable. The environment is not just concrete and iron, it is mentality. Each bar, each cell, each reinforced glass contributes to an experience of psychological transformation, where the perception of reality bends, folds, and reconfigures itself. The convict who enters whole, with a history of choices, of pride or indifference, emerges altered, fragmented, recognizing, often too late, the extent of his own decisions and the impact they had, not only on others but on himself. The hidden truth of the place reveals itself in layers. Physical torture, isolation, constant surveillance, yes. But what corrodes most is the internal abyss that forms, an invisible wound that no visit, no exercise, no day can heal. And yet there are nuances. Small moments that seem insignificant. A glance at the sky through the narrow window, a rarely seen gesture of compassion, a memory that insists on returning. Each fragment reveals something about transformation, about how the human mind reacts under unimaginable pressures. And as you watch, you feel a strange mixture of empathy and horror, because you realize there are no simple answers. Every detail, every silence, every shadow contains hidden events that defy any superficial understanding. What truly terrifies is not just the routine or the explicit violence. It's the cold calculation of those who observe, of those who keep the system running, of those who know that the massive psychological impact generates results society will never see. The revelations come in waves, each more intense than the last, leaving the viewer tense, questioning, how far does human responsibility go? At what point does justice turn into cruelty? And when the condemned find themselves alone, at the point where everything they knew has disappeared, all that remains is the absolute confrontation with mortality and the awareness that, in this place, the mind can be punished as relentlessly as the body. And then, as if by reflex, you realize that every detail observed is no mere accident. It's instruction, manipulation, a cruel lesson. Survival here depends not only on the physical, but on the ability to navigate the mental abyss itself. Small signs, seemingly trivial decisions, can mean the difference between maintaining a shred of sanity or being consumed by darkness. And at that point, even when it seems the abyss has revealed everything, the final wound emerges, something that escapes immediate perception but slowly seeps in, heightening tension and doubt, making it clear that the spiral of horror hasn't ended, only deepened. The observer becomes part of the experience. The human mind, when pushed to its limits, reveals aspects that no study could predict, no story could fully narrate. And you feel, even without realizing it, the fine line between reality and interpretation, between what is true and what the mind of the condemned projects to survive. Every moment is now crucial, every detail, every reaction, every hidden shadow becomes a piece of a larger puzzle. What comes next promises to cross the limits of perception, unearth secrets that remained buried, and challenge the understanding of the observer. And as you breathe along, absorbing each fragment, you realize that the collective abyss still holds its next blow, silent, lethal, and yet irresistibly fascinating. And as you feel the weight of these broken minds, these truths no one wants to face, know that there are even more layers, even more hidden shadows waiting to be revealed. Stay with me until the end, because each entry here is not just a number. It is a silent gesture, a promise that stories like these will continue to be told, that secrets will remain in the light of the watchful eye of those who do not fear the forbidden. Each person who decides to join us allows the investigation to continue, for horror, hidden truth, and the darkest shadows to find a voice. It's not just about watching. It's about belonging to something that understands the allure of the forbidden, that acknowledges the weight of mortality, that feels the restlessness that corrodes every human decision. Your presence here makes a difference. And each story, each fragment we reveal, only gains complete meaning because there is someone on the other side, someone who feels, who questions, who allows themselves to be drawn into the abyss with us. So, if this journey through silence, psychological impact, and contained horror touches something within you, allow yourself to go further. Sign up. Not out of obligation, but to ensure that the next secret, the next disturbed mind, the next fragment of the abyss, finds someone who deserves to hear it. Because what comes next will challenge your perception even further, and I want you to be here, breathing in every detail, every shadow, every revelation, as if it were your own. And you realize, almost without meaning to, that the pattern repeats itself. Every concrete room, every silent corridor, every suppressed scream, these are not just isolated accidents. They are the signature of the system. It's as if time has chosen some bodies to bear the weight of cruelty, and others to witness, helpless, as the human mind fractures in the face of constant fear. The decisions that were meant to protect end up destroying. They transform men into shadows, into echoes of what they once were. Every choice, every cold protocol, every imposed routine conceals a hidden truth. And the more we observe, the more we question, who truly survives? Who is shaped by horror, and who merely observes, carrying the silent guilt of being unable to intervene? Imagine the mind of someone who spends years in isolation, knowing that every sound, every shadow, is a reminder that the outside world remains indifferent. The psychological impact is not immediate. It infiltrates slowly, almost imperceptibly, eroding identity, hope, any semblance of normalcy. And as this happens, the cycle repeats itself across different continents, different regimes, different prisons. But the effect is universal. There are no boundaries for fear, nor for the pain that infiltrates the soul. The victims carry invisible wounds that time cannot erase. And we, the observers, feel every fragment, as if the horror were also infiltrating our own thoughts, provoking a restlessness that does not dissipate. A psychological voyeurism that makes us ask, what if it were me? What if my decisions could also create invisible monsters? And in the silence of the Gitarama corridor, in the suffocating heat of Bangkwang, in Evan's cold solitude, every detail, every violent gesture, every brutal routine, feels like another chapter in the same story. A never-ending spiral. One that forces us to face not only human frailty, but also the limits of what we can understand, endure, or imagine. And yet there's something more. A layer that goes beyond immediate fear. Something you don't see in the statistics or the headlines. A psychological pattern, a collective mindset, a transformation that occurs almost invisibly, but whose consequences reverberate decades later, shaping new prisons, new horrors, new minds. Revelations that are unannounced, but that hide behind the scenes, in lost records, in the echoes of screams that never die away. Stories that seem disconnected intertwine. Each planned execution, each merciless routine, each prolonged isolation, all point to a cruel logic, a method that transcends cultures and borders. The hidden truth is that horror doesn't need to reveal itself all at once. It infiltrates, whispers, tests boundaries, and, little by little, transforms the perception of those who observe it. As we journey forward, safe fear keeps us alert. It forces us to empathize, to question our own decisions, to confront mortality and justice in each fragment revealed. It's an experience that captivates us, leaves us uneasy, and makes us reflect on the fine line between victim and observer, between survivor and accomplice, between humanity and the abyss we carry within. And it is at this threshold, in this almost tangible tension, that each new story connects to the previous one. That each partial revelation creates a spiral of curiosity and regret. That each fragment of horror shows us that, no matter how hard we try to understand, there will always be something hidden. A detail that escapes. An echo of what we don't want to hear. A gaze that watches us back, silent, judging, insistent. And as you feel the weight of this, the awareness of the inevitable cycle, a question persists. Can we truly escape? Or are we destined to repeat, observe, and carry, out of empathy or fear, the same weight of each never-ending cycle? Every decision made, every silence maintained, every silent observation, all contribute to the continuation of the abyss. And then you realize that no wall is high enough to contain what was sown there. Each brick carried not just concrete, but the weight of cruel decisions, of systems calculated to break minds and bodies. Carandiru is not just memory, it is a constant whisper that spans generations, reminding us that terror has a life of its own, independent of our certainties. San Quentin and Rikers Island repeat the same pattern with different subtleties, but with the same cold logic, transforming humans into shadows, walking records of suffering and silence. Camp 22 in North Korea adds another layer, an almost unimaginable distortion of what it means to exist under total surveillance, where the mind learns to betray itself to survive. It's at this point that you feel the deepest tension. It's not just the physical horror, but the psychological wound that lingers, slowly seeping in, leaving invisible traces in the fabric of memory. Each survivor carries echoes of pain that reverberate in repetitive thoughts, in sleepless nights, in decisions made simply to keep breathing. And yet, these experiences are incomplete, pieces of a hidden truth that no one has dared to write down in its entirety, because the totality would be unbearable for most. What's shown in the headlines is just a fragment, a mask of the abyss. What remains hidden are the shadows of fear, the small decisions that shape the human mind when faced with absolute powerlessness. How does one react when routine becomes torture? When every breath is monitored, every step is calculated, every gesture is potentially punished. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's slow, silent, almost imperceptible but irrevocable. And yet, there are moments of fissure, of small bursts of humanity that escape control. A gaze that meets another, a whisper that penetrates bars, a barely perceptible gesture of compassion. It's these fragments that create the tension between what seems inhumane and what you still insist on calling human. Every detail is a layered decision. Survive, resist, give in, or be swallowed by the abyss that grows in the silence. As you observe, almost like a forbidden confidant, you begin to see the connections. The cycle isn't just a repetition of violence, but a psychological spiral where fear, guilt, and observation intertwine. Each prisoner becomes a reflection of another, each cruel routine replicates itself in another latitude, each trauma is a secret lesson the world insists on ignoring. And it is in this mirror that we see ourselves. Psychological voyeurism is not accidental. It is a tool that compels empathy, reflection, and at times the silent shame of being alive while others endure horrors that defy all comprehension. And just when we think we understand, the question arises, are we just observing or are we already part of the cycle? Every shadow that goes unnoticed, every silence we assume, every decision we avoid making, all contribute to the continuation of this spiral of horror. The voices that echo from Carandiru, from San Quentin, from Camp 22, no longer belong to those who lived, but to the psychological fabric of all who dare to look into these stories. They are a reminder that time does not completely heal. It only transforms, displaces, and fragments, leaving traces that can be felt by those who observe closely enough. And it's at that moment that you understand that the prison, even demolished, never truly closes. The concrete may crumble, the walls may fall, but the impact, the involuntary learning of fear and forced empathy, remains. The voices haven't been buried. The screams continue, latent, waiting for someone to come close enough to listen, not to judge but to understand. Each story is a layered lesson, an invitation to reflect on the limits of the human mind, on the fragility of morality, and on the persistence of horrors that refuse to disappear. And as you feel this tension, this mix of fascination and discomfort, you realize there's still more to come. Secrets not fully revealed, decisions not fully unraveled, wounds that remain raw. The outcome isn't closure, but a bridge to something even deeper, something hidden in the shadows, between the lines, in the details that go unnoticed by the hurried eye. Because what truly matters is not what you see but what you feel. And what you feel now is just an introduction to the abyss that continues, silent, irresistible, disturbing. The story isn't over. It has simply expanded, infiltrating your mind, challenging every perceived limit, every decision you believe to be yours. Every step we take together in this spiral of revelations brings us closer to the next layer where the truth, or what's left of it, is about to reveal itself in a way that changes not only who you observe, but who you believe yourself to be. And if you've made it this far, you've realized that this story doesn't end with walls falling or doors closing. It lives on in every question left unanswered, in every shadow that still lingers over the human mind. If you felt the same way, leave a comment. I'm with you until the end. It's just a gesture, small, but it shows that you too feel the weight of this abyss, that you share this curiosity and this silent indignation. And if this video made your heart race, if the tension and mystery touched something deep inside you, leave a like. It's not just about numbers, it's about recognition, about saying that we're together, that we're looking into this same abyss. It's an invisible pact, a way to keep feeling, thinking, questioning. Now, if you want to dig a little deeper, there's a video here that complements all this, revealing other layers of what the systems, the prisons, and the men tried to bury. Click there and stay with me there. Because the thread doesn't end, it only extends, and together we can continue to unravel every secret that insists on remaining hidden. Subscribe, because each story I share is just a fraction of what needs to be heard, felt, and reflected upon. And if you do, you'll realize you're not alone in facing this horror, but connected to a consciousness that wants to understand, question, and challenge everything we've been told is impossible to face.